fly, run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. But by all means, keep moving.
Hello everybody and welcome to our new lecture presented to you by Dr. Nidal Mahmoud, a lecturer at the English Department, College of Education, Misan University. Dear students, today we start with a new poem, Samuel Taylor Coleridge, and his poem which is entitled The Rime of the Ancient Mariner. Yes, and as usual we start with the poet's life before we go into the details of the poem. So Coleridge, is one of the lake poets, and the lake poets, of course, they are William Wordsworth, Samuel Taylor Coleridge, and Robert Southey. They are called by this name because they lived in the English Lake district of Cumberland and Westmoreland at the beginning of the 19th century. Yes, and Coleridge and William Wordsworth, they published their first joint work, which is called the Lyrical Palace. And of course, the Lyrical Palace collection of poems, it is a joint work of Coleridge and his close friend William Wordsworth. And this work is, of course, marked as a turning point in the history of English poetry, and also signified as the beginning of English Romanticism. Yes, Coleridge's poem, The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, appeared in the first edition of the Lyrical Ballads. And the word ballads, it is, of course, a simple poem in short stanza which tells a story. The poem is about a man on a voyage by ship who is in one impulsive act changes the course of his life and death. The mariner faces a series of horrible events and suffers from inner struggle over the crime he has committed. The old sailor, or the mariner, he describes some strange misfortunes that happened to his ship. And of course, it was in the ice of the South Pole when he shot the great bird, which is called albatross. It is, of course, a sacred bird, and for this crime, a curse fell on the ship and also the crew of the ship. The sailors.
The fair breeze blew, the white foam flew, the furrow followed free. We were the first that ever burst into that silent sea. Down dropped the breeze, the sails dropped down, 'twas sad as sad could be. And we did speak only to break the silence of the sea. All in a hot and copper sky, the bloody sun at noon, right up above the mast did stand, no bigger than the moon. Day after day, we stuck nor breath nor motion, as idle as a painted ship upon a painted ocean.
Yes, here we have some of the important words that or need to be explained. We have the word breeze, it means light wind, or the soft air. We have the word foam, froth, and furrow, it means the deep line in earth or the track. Yes, we have the word burst, it means explode or blow up. Mast, it means the standard. And also we have the word stuck, which means attached or tied. Yes, in the first stanza, the fair breeze blew, the white foam flow. The furrow followed free, we were the first that ever burst into that silent sea. In this stanza, of course, the poet describes the movement of the ship, which was very smooth and tender, and also the sea was very calm and was very quiet with its wind, because he said that a gentle breeze began blowing. The water also bubbles flew in the air as the ship started moving. So this is a very good and a close description of the state in which the ship started it's the journey, or the voyage, and the bubbles formed white foam in the air, and the ship was sailing and leaving behind a track. Here, the word track is used metaphorically in order to show that they were the first people to break the silence of that sea. In the second stanza, the poet describes the idea of motionless ship, when suddenly the breeze stopped blowing and everything around them became silent fearfully. So the situation was very hard, and it also was very sad because of the silence of the sea, and it was only broken by the sailors' shouts. And maybe this is the bad omen, or maybe this is the beginning of the punishment, and the curse that fell over them, because they have committed the crime when they killed or they shot the albatross. Yes, in this stanza, the sky looked like a heated copper. Yes, here he describes the sudden change, which took place at that moment. The sky, it became like a heated copper, and also the sun, it looked as red as the blood. So this happened at mid-noon, and the sun was standing right above the mast of the ship, yes, which looked like the moon in its size. Here, this is a bad omen, because the sun itself, it became the color has been completely changed, and also the size, it shrank and it became small in size. This just like the size of the moon. Yes, the situation, of course, continued for more than one day. It continued for days, and the ship remained motionless because there was no wind, and it looked like a painted picture in the middle of the sea. And the sailors also, they were very thirsty, though they were surrounded by water, but they were not able to drink any drop. And of course, as a result, the ship began to rot and to shrink. Yes, here the poet goes on to describe the harsh situation of the sailors. They were very thirsty, though they were surrounded by water. And of course, here we have many words are repeated. For example, day after day, day after day. It is repeated in order to describe the long period of time. Yes, during or the sailors, they were suffering from. And also we have the word water everywhere. It is also repeated in order to indicate how big is the ocean, or how big the ocean is, and how thirsty the sailors are. The poem, of course, has a moral lesson. Here, the poet advises people to be in love with nature and all creatures that are created by God, even if they are animals. Of course, this is the first message. And the second one, also, we can say that the poem can be interpreted as a poem of sin and redemption, that man should be punished for committing any crime, like what happened for the sailor who killed the innocent bird, and as a result, the curse, fell on him and his men. The devices that are used in the poem is, we have contrast. First of all, there is contrast between the motion of the ship and the complete lack of motion that is represented in the second part of the poem. So we have the motion of the ship and the picture of the motionless ship. And also we have contrast between smooth and calm weather in the first stanza and the hard and horrible weather condition in the other stanza. And also there is contrast between the size of the sun and the great amount of its heat. Because the sun, it became very small in size, and is supposed to give not this great amount of this the heat. But what happened, of course, it was the punishment of God. Yes, because those people have committed something wrong when they shot the albatross. Yes, we have also the other device. It is illustration and Coleridge illustrates the changing psychological state of the mariner and his men by the image of the changeable weather. In the first part of the poem, everything seems... Yes, in the first part, of course, the weather was very calm, and then it has been completely changed and became very, horrible. The wind in the first stanza blows smoothly, and then all of a sudden it stops moving and the weather turns to be very hot. Yes, and also we have repetition. We have in line 13 the words day after day repeated to describe the long period of time. Yes, when the sailors were suffering from the state of being very thirsty. And in the final stanza, the word water is repeated many times in order to indicate how big the ocean or the sea is and how thirsty the sailors are. Yes, and metaphor, we have also, or the poet, he borrows the word of farming and relates it to navigation, the uses of the words furrow, which means a deep line in the earth made by a plowman, to refer to the track made behind the sailing ship, and this is used metaphorically to describe the speed of the ship. Yes, and also we have the word copper. It is used metaphorically to refer to the sky which turned red and hot. And also we have the word blood describes the red and also the color of the sun. Yes. We also have simile. In line 15, the poet compares the real ship and the sea to a painted picture of a ship, and this is to show the motionless sea. And then we have alliteration. The word breeze, blow, they have the same initial sound. And also we have the word foam, flow. We have also the words furrow, followed, free.
The poem was written between 1797 and 98 by Samuel Taylor Coleridge and published in 1798 in the first edition of Lyrical Ballads. This poem, alongside others, are cited as the reason for the shift of poetry into the beginning of British Romantic literature. The poem starts with a mariner pulling over a wedding guest forcefully to tell him about a voyage he had a long time ago. The voyage began with the ship departing, although their journey quickly fails as their ship gets driven off course towards the south. They reach icy waters and are surrounded by a stormy weather. Though luckily for them, they find an albatross bird in the skies flying. They follow the bird and he manages to lead them out of the troublesome waters, and the bird here represents a good omen. The mariner that the story talks about kills the bird. At first, the crew grows angry with him since they didn't see why he'd do that to their savior. But then the mist surrounding them slowly dissipates, which they mistakenly attribute to the death of the bird. Except, "'Twas right," said they, "such birds to slay, that bring the fog and mist." As they kept setting forth, the spirit of wrath confronts them and starts pursuing them due to them killing the innocent bird, and the wild winds blew them off course yet again, this time sending them into uncharted seas. They turn on the mariner yet again, and they force him to wear the albatross around his neck, signifying that the sin he committed weighs on him, and that he must carry such a burden with him. Excerpt. "Ah, well a day, what evil looks had I from old and young! Instead of the cross, the albatross about my neck was hung." After some time, the sailors encounter a ghostly being, Death. The female ghost plays a life-and-death game of dice with the crew members, which results in her winning and in turn her taking the souls of the crew. Except 4 times 50 living men, and I heard no sigh nor groan. With heavy thumb, a lifeless lump, they dropped down one by one. As for the mariner, he has to face a fate worse than death. He is forced to stay alive with the corpses of his fellow crew members. The mariner regrets his action, and after staying on the sea for 7 days and nights, he starts to channel deep respect for marine life. Happy with his actions, the spirit possesses the dead bodies of the crew, and being good spirits, they steer the ship on the right path towards the mainland. The surface level meaning is to show respect to wildlife, and specifically that of aquatic creatures. One interpretation of the poem's hidden meaning is that the poem is like a salvation story, and the loneliness that the mariner goes through could be representing the loneliness that the writer is experiencing. As shown by Coleridge's letters and journals, the writer uses different narrative techniques, from personification to repetition, to instill a sense of fear and calmness within the reader, depending on which part of the poem they're reading.
If you can't fly, run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. But by all means, keep moving.